Hello, all. I welcome you all to the second part of the 11th lecture. So, previously we discussed about the equilibrium conditions, right? And in a PN junction diode, we saw the current distribution, we saw the charge distribution and stuff, and now we will actually calculate the IV characteristics of a PN junction. Okay, it's called an ideal diode equation or a Shockley equation. Shockley's equation. So to begin with, we will start with some assumptions that Shockley had made to derive these equations. We will introduce them as and when they occur. Right? There are a few assumptions. So the first one being that you can still assume the Boltzmann's equation at thermodynamic equilibrium. Boltzmann's equation for carrier concentration. The equations are precisely n equal to ni e power ef minus ei by kt. You will remember that this equation is same as the equation for a semiconductor under a non-degenerate condition. Right? You remember this, right? So it is same as saying that you have a semiconductor at such high temperatures that the Fermi-Dirac distribution and the Maxwell's-Boltzmann distribution are almost the same. Right? So we use this particular equation to derive this particular relation. The same way you can write for P by kt. Right? The thing about this equation is that it is true everywhere in the sense that I take a semiconducting material, I have an n-type and a p-type semiconductor. The n concentration and the p concentration at any point throughout the semiconductor, so you have p of x here, n of x here, can all be represented by this by two different numbers. One is the Fermi level, right? So the n has a Fermi level, let's say here, and the p has a Fermi level, say here, and the energy level called the intrinsic energy level. So the separation between these two levels determine what is the density of carriers, right? So this is what this equation tells you, and we have seen this before, right? But when we join, of course, the Fermi levels match between the two, and then we saw a kind of a distribution, right? Something like when we join them together, then we have an equilibrium distribution like this. Even here you see that the intrinsic level bends along with this conduction and valence band, right? Because of the electric field is what we saw before. All of them will have the similar slopes everywhere, right? So even at thermodynamic equilibrium, this equation, the Boltzmann's equation, remains true even under thermodynamic equilibrium where we have joined both of them together. Which also says that far away from the interface, you have the same densities, you have the equilibrium densities of an n-type and a p-type semiconductor. At the interface, of course, you have a reduced carrier density because you are having a depletion width, right? So under these situations, now we are looking at an ideal diode characteristics when there is an applied potential, right? So we take this particular equilibrium concentration and apply potential. So what happens is that you have the Fermi level which is shifted in two different directions, right? So let us take this to be a p-type one and this is an n-type one, right? Let us say that we apply a positive potential at p and negative potential at n, such that the Fermi level at the n side is pushed up by the value qv, v being the applied bias. Under such situations, you can draw this band diagram again, right? Now the Fermi level is shifted and you have two different Fermi levels. This is the Fermi level of the electron side, this is the Fermi level on the hole side, right? Again, these two should join, right? And the thing that we are trying to resolve now is what happens at the interface. Far away from the interface, of course, the Fermi levels depend upon the potential that is applied. The potential that is applied to the to the n side makes it change, right? It is also assumed that far from the interface there is no drop in the potential, in the sense whatever potential that I apply here, that is V that is applied at the end of this semiconductor, is transferred right to the junction. So the entire potential that is applied transforms to the potential which is applied to the junction. Thereby there is no drift, or I mean there is no gradient in the band or the Fermi level at the sample edges at infinity, right? So basically the band structures, conduction band and the valence band, are almost flat at the infinity, and there are only changes very close to the interface, right? Now that we understand how things are, so we have said that this is the Fermi level in the electron side, this is the Fermi level at the hole side, and we have to see what happens, how we stitch them together here, right? Under these situations you can write at applied bias the carrier density n is now ni e power EFN. Now there are different, right? You don't have the equilibrium Fermi level, you don't have one single Fermi level, you have two Fermi levels which are called as quasi Fermi levels, or they are called as IMREF, an opposite of Fermi, right? It can be called anyway. EI minus EFP by KT. These are two different densities, right? Using these things you can actually invert these equations, and then you can write EFN is EI plus KT ln n by Ni. Similarly, EFP is EI minus KT ln P by Ni. So it just tells you at each position how much is the shift from the intrinsic energy level. It depends upon the carrier density n and p, right? Now let us take these two equations and multiply one by the other, right? And n into p will give you Ni square e power EFN minus EFP by KT. So this equation is particularly important for the derivation of the current, so we will leave it here for now. We will come back to this equation again during the course of our discussion. So now let us take a look at the current and the expression for the current, right? So we know the total current expression. The current from the electron is again a summation of the drift and diffusion current, which is written as E Ne mu n capital E plus E dn by dx. We have seen this expression many times before. We will let us say we will substitute the value of n from the expression that we have previously written, so which will give you Ne mu n capital E plus E dn. Differentiation of this will give you again n, and you have dEFN by dx minus dEI by dx by kt. And you can take E mu n out, right? Ne plus dn by mu n is kt by q, right? This is n by q dEFN by dx minus dEI by dx. And we know that dEI by dx is equal to the electric field. We have previously seen this, so which will finally give us the expression for the current JN is n mu n del EFN. So basically the current in this junction is a gradation, is the gradient of the quasi Fermi level on the n side. The same thing can be written for the P, will be P mu P del EFP. So the currents in this junction, where you have a PN junction with an applied potential, depends only on the gradient in the Fermi level, right? And you can see that the gradient in the Fermi level also depends upon the carrier density that from these equations that we have written. So now let us take this junction and then make an assumption. This is the second assumption, the first one being the Boltzmann's assumption. The second assumption, it is based on qualitative argument which says that the current in the depletion width, the individual current component, okay, that is Jn and Jp in the individual, remains almost unchanged. Why is this true? Is that if you can see in the depletion, so basically you have the depletion width in the region where you have a gradient in the bands, right? You can see even in these regions you have a large density of carriers, which in comparison to the minority carriers on the other side, you have a large density of carriers here, right? And these large density of carriers can lead to exploding current densities if you have a large gradient in the Fermi level. Again, let me repeat, the carrier density, because the carrier density in the depletion width can be large in comparison to the minority carrier density, right? And that leads to exploding current densities if you have a large gradient in the Fermi level and in the depletion width. Okay, so it is this which makes which makes the assumption that the current in the depletion width remains almost constant, which makes the Fermi level to remain almost constant in the depletion width, right? So now let us draw the figures again. Let us say we have this n side, the p side and the n side, right? And you have the quasi Fermi level at the p side and quasi Fermi level at the n side, and the separation between the two is the applied voltage as we saw before, right? Which is true here. Initially it was aligned, and the separation is because of the potential that you have applied, right? This is EFP and this is EFN, right? And right now the assumption that the current in the depletion width remains largely unmodified makes sure, so this is where the depletion width starts, right? And let us say, let me draw these lines and put this as x is equal to 0 and this portion as xn and this as xp minus xp, right? These are the notations that we have used previously. We will hold on to the notations. So the Fermi level in the depletion width remains flat on both electron and the hole side, right? So this lets us that the carrier density, that is the electron density, this makes us to find an expression for the electron density at this point at x is equal to minus xp, right? Because we know the expression. Let us take this product n into p that we previously saw, right? N into p is ni square into e power EFN minus EFP by kT, right? And we saw that this is true throughout the semiconductor, so we can draw this product even at this point at x is equal to minus xp. So at x is equal to minus xp you can have this n, right? And p, because this is in the p type region, we know that this p will be equivalent to the thermodynamic equilibrium p concentration, right? P of p type is equal to ni square e power, you know that so here the difference, because we have assumed that the Fermi levels do not change in the depletion width and this is the edge of the depletion width, so the difference in the Fermi level will be the applied potential, right? QV by KT. The entire assumption came just to have such a simplified expression for the carrier density of electrons at the edge of the depletion width in p side. Let me repeat, the entire assumption of the current being constant and the Fermi level being flat in the depletion width is to have such a simplified expression for the carrier density, for the density of electrons in the border or at the edge of the depletion width in P side, right? So basically this is n at minus xp, right, is equal to ni square by pp e power qv by kt. And ni square by pp can be written as p n naught, right? So because ni square is pp into np, sorry, it is not pp. Ni square can be written as pp into np, right? So basically this is np naught, equilibrium concentration, into e power qv by kt. This is n at minus xp, right? This is p naught, right? This is the equilibrium concentration, because we think that the majority carriers do not change a lot, and it's only the minority carriers which change, right? So basically this expression which says that the carrier density at the edge of the depletion width in P is exponentially related to the applied potential and is a product of the equilibrium concentration multiplied by this by exponential, right? And you can see that if we have forward bias, then the minority carrier injection from the n side to the p side grows exponentially with the applied bias B. Minority injection from p to n grows exponentially. Right? Similarly, if we have reverse bias, you can see that if we have a reverse bias here, now the concentration of n at the border of the depletion width now drops down exponentially, right, because it is e power minus q. So what happens is the carrier density at x is equal to minus xp. So here how do I draw the carrier density? Okay, I'm going to choose a different color. I'm drawing the n carrier density for a positive let us say that I have, let me draw it separately. I'm drawing n density, right, and this is x is equal to 0, and this is x is equal to minus xp, right? And this is x is equal to xn. You have huge carrier densities till this point, right? This is nd, and we are yet to see what happens here. But at x is equal to minus infinity, you have a very small volume which is called the np naught. This is the equilibrium current concentration of electrons in the p-type region, right? At x is equal to xp, we have an exponential increase proportional to the velocity potential that we have applied, right? So basically this level is np naught into e power qv by kt, right? So now that we have an expression for the minorities which are injected into the p-type region, right? Now we can calculate how does this minority diffuse into a p-type region, right? So basically this is the depletion width, border of the depletion width, and we know the carrier density at the edge of this depletion width. The question is, how does this minority carriers diffuse inside the p-type region? The solution to, the way to solve this is of course the continuity equation. Now let us write the electron continuity equation in the p-type material. So the electron continuity equation is, you have dou n by dou t is, you have some generation minus recombination, right, plus mu n, E being the electric field, d n by dx plus mu n d E by dx plus d square n by dx square, right? And we are talking about steady state, so obviously you can bring this to 0, and we are not having any generation. It's an approximation again, right? Now this is the third approximation, that there are no generation. And the recombination R we know is n minus np naught by tau, right? This is the rate at which it recombines. So now if I put these things back, I will have n minus np naught by tau minus plus mu n e dn by dx plus mu n dE by dx plus dn d square n by dx square equal to 0. You can write the same expression for p, which will turn out to be minus p by p n naught by tau minus mu p e dpn by dx minus mu p pn dE by dx plus dp d square p by dx square is equal to 0. Now we are talking about the diffusion of carriers away from the depletion width, right? Under these conditions, the electric field is actually 0, right? Because we previously saw the electric field lies only between minus xp to xn. So the E terms and dE by dE terms goes to 0. So this gives us a very simplified expression to solve in the p-type region for minority carriers. Let us write this for in the n-type region. We have, let's say, d square pn by dx square minus pn minus pn naught by dp tau p equal to 0, right? It's easy to see that all these things are 0, just dp comes down, so you will find this. So the solution for this can be found with two boundary conditions. The first boundary condition being pn tends to pn naught at x tending to infinity, of course, right? So at the far end it has to go to the equilibrium concentration. The second thing is at x is equal to xn, we know this pn is actually pn naught, the equilibrium concentration, plus the expression that we have here. This is pn naught e power qv by kt. Under these two conditions, the solution for this pn, so the solution for this differential equation will turn out to be pn of x is equal to pn naught plus pn naught into e power qv by kt minus pn naught into e power minus x minus xn by lp. It is pretty straightforward because the solution is an exponential solution, and you know the two boundary conditions, and if you substitute you will find this expression pretty quickly. And lp in this is root of dp and tau p. It is called as the diffusion length, right? And this is true because we have seen this in many places. For the example in which you have a minority carrier injection from the left side that we have seen before, this expression can also be used there, right? We also see this expression there. So once we know the carrier density expression, we know the current, because we are going to assume that there is only diffusion current, because we are in a regime where there is no field E, so we have only the diffusion current, which is minus q dp by dx. The diffusion current is the same everywhere, so we are going to calculate it at xn, right, which is simplest for us because the term already has xn. So if I substitute the value of dp here, I get the current to be q dp pn naught by lp e power qv by kt minus. A similar expression you can get for electron as well, which will turn out to be q dn by dx at x is equal to minus xp, which will turn out to be q dn np naught by ln e power qv by kt minus. So the total current now is a summation of these two components, can be written as J naught e power qv by kt minus 1, where J naught is q dp pn naught by lp plus q dn np naught by ln. Another way of writing this is q dp ni square by lp nd plus q dn ni square by ln ne. You can see the second expression is purely a material parameter, right? So the current J naught, which is called as the reverse saturation current, is purely a material parameter, and you have a current which is increasing exponentially with the applied potential V. Right? Before we close our discussion here, we need to see a few plots because it is instructive to understand what happens to the carrier densities at different potentials, right? So let us first see the carrier distribution under different potentials, different bias conditions. On the left we have the let us say n and p densities versus x, right, under forward bias. Let's say this is x is equal to 0 and you have minus x p and this is xn. Under forward bias you can see that the electron concentration, which I am drawing in red, right, has some value potential more than the intrinsic, this is np naught, and it falls down exponentially because the expression that we have, that we derived here, right, it is exponentially falling. Similarly, the on the electron side you have very high density here. This is this is the whole side. You have Na, and you have some density much higher than the equilibrium density, and then it falls down exponentially. Right? Now, if you do the same thing for reverse bias, I'm going to do only for the electron side, right? The electron drops down exponentially at the p type and then raises now, right? Because it has to anyway go back to the equilibrium concentration, right? And it has much high values here. So this is the kind of relationship that you will have for the carrier densities. What do you think about the current? We know that the currents are constant, right? The electron current, so I am drawing the current here, Jp and Jn, again at these two levels, minus xp xn, right? The current is let us say the we can see the current components here, right? So basically it goes exponentially with the applied potential, right? And at each point you can calculate the current density, from this expression, because this was calculated at x is equal to minus xp. You can calculate this at x is equal to at any value, right? X is equal to 0, x is equal to minus xp, and you will see that the electron component goes with the current density, right? Goes with the the current density goes with the electronic density. It is constant in depletion width, as we saw before, and then it will raise exponentially. The same thing will happen for the holes, right? It has to raise exponentially. So this is Jp, this is Jn, remain constant in the depletion width, and then reduce exponentially down, because this is how the hole density changes. This is true because the currents that we're talking about is only diffusion currents, right? And the diffusion current is proportional to the change in the current density, and these are all exponentials because the carrier density is by itself exponential. So the derivative of the exponential will again turn to be another derivative, right? So the currents are also exponentials in the minority regime, right? Now on the reverse bias case, anyways, the summation of these two should always be constant, right? Because current is a conserved quantity, the current does not diverge. We saw this del dot J is 0, right? So basically you should have a constant current everywhere in the material. It is just the relative contributions change, right? So we will have the same thing here. The current does not change, the electron and hole current does not change in the depletion width, right? It will again go the same way, but then it will just drop much drastically faster now in comparison to the previous case, right? This is the case in the reverse bias. So this is x, j, the total j is once again conserved, jp, j. Right? So we will stop our discussions now, and the next time we meet we will talk about things. Okay, so before we go, right, there are certain things about this. So basically this is the ideal diode equation, right? Though it was able to explain well the characteristics in germanium, it was not able to explain well the diode IV characteristics in silicon and gallium arsenide. The reason behind this are that it did not account for generation and recombination. This lead to major errors too. This is true only at low injection, right? It did not handle high electron or hole injection, which was found to be true even at low bias potentials in silicon and germanium, right? The third thing is we assume that the electric potential drops only across all the potential that is applied drops only across the junction, and there are no drops in the bulk of the semiconductor, which is again a problem because there are always parasitic IR drops in the semiconductor. So the potential at the junction is always smaller than the potential which is supplied, right? It did not account for tunneling between the states. This was not accounted, right? The last one is it did not take into account any of the surface effects, because the surface are areas where recombinations are accelerated, and you have high charge concentration at the surface. You can have current conduction at the surface. So all the surface effects were neglected. On all these things contributed for the ideal diode equation not to match exactly in silicon and gallium arsenide. We will deal with a few non-ideal characteristics from this equation and then see how we can improve our fit in other semiconductors. right? So we will stop our discussion for. Thank you.